Fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Today I'm joined by Lavie Sak, founder of ADV Tennis and very active in giving back to tennis. And that's some of the topics we're going to talk about today through Tennis Cambodia, Club Tennis de Chapelle in Haiti, and the Atlanta Youth Tennis Education Foundation. So it's quite an interesting topic and something I think we can all be quite interested in, as well as talking about lower levels of Davis Cup. But we start with the usual question. How are you today, Matt?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Here near the Washington, D.C. suburbs. It's a little bit colder than I like, but overall, I can't complain. No, it's good. It's good.
What's the temperature like right now?
Right now, it's around, I think, 50 Celsius, but 3 weeks ago, it got down to, I'm sorry, not Celsius, Fahrenheit. It got down to
Pretty
almost,
low, though, yeah.
I think it is. It got down to 12 Fahrenheit, and that was... It was not fun. Not fun at all.
Crazy. Something's up with the weather. Yeah, we have rain here, which we usually don't. So it's a bit annoying, even though it's pretty warm, but it's still raining for like a week. So tennis plans have to be adjusted because we don't even have indoor courts. I mean, we do have nice outdoor courts, but we don't have any indoor courts in the whole like Costa del Sol in south of Spain, where you went for the Davis Cup. So we met me and Lavie and at the Davis Cup, the farewell of Rafa, and also what was the women's event called again?
The Billie Jean Cup.
Billie Jean King Cup.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
How you enjoyed it as well?
Yeah, no, it was great. Great competition. We saw the Brits. I think they won, and Emma Raducanu had a great match. So that was really fun to watch.
It was. It's always fun to watch professional tennis. And so your background, I think we need to start there. Like, what's your background in tennis? You used to be a player, pretty good level, and what happened?
Yeah, I'd be a decent player. I was younger. I went to Virginia. I was not good enough to play Virginia. Those boys are very good. I know some of the guys are doing pretty well. And yeah, I still love the game. I coached for about 8 years in an academy in Atlanta. Shout out to Universal Tennis Academy. Great people there. Great academy, great kids. So I really miss it there. Yeah, I don't coach anymore. I'm full-time working on ADV tennis company, and it's funny owning a tennis company. I actually play less tennis than I did before. I want to change that given my knee and my ankle situations, but hopefully I get back on the court full strength soon.
Yeah, I guess that's the issue, right? Like you start a company and you're like, I want to be involved in tennis and this going to help me be more involved, but then the time of playing is reduced, so that's because you're working all the time.
Yeah. I find myself on tennis courts more to do photo shoots and content and things like that, as opposed to actually playing. But yeah, I want to change that. So hopefully soon.
So what happened with your injuries? How did that occur?
Let's put it this way. I'm not getting any younger. I broke my right femur way back when playing flag football. And now there's some effects from that. I have early arthritis on my right knee. I have a calf strain. I play basketball twice a week, and that actually impacted that. So yeah. Hopefully everything's all good in a month or two. So.
Yeah, it's tough. Injuries and also age, of course. Like with the older you get, the more you need to do the workouts besides the tennis court. You can't just play tennis for exercise. You need to do all the gym stuff as well. I have to ask you about the jersey in the back or the jacket in the back. Davis Cup. Is it Cambodia? What is it?
Yeah, so that's Davis Cup Cambodia. I guess you call me somewhat of an honorary player. I don't play at all. But I definitely support the team. My parents are Cambodian or Khmer. And yeah, I had a chance to go to one of the first Davis Cups in 2013 in Dubai. They played Group 3 Oceania at the time, and they played, I believe, Saudi Arabia, Myanmar, Kyrgyzstan, Iran. But it was an amazing experience to see just the different countries and just how everyone got along. It was like just this world of geopolitics. It's a little bit messy, but it's just nice to see everyone rallying around a common thing, and that was tennis. And it was great competition. It was like fierce competition, but there was so much respect. And it was cool to be in Dubai. Like I warmed up with the guys and did some exercises, and like my shoes legitimately were melting because those courts are so hot, and unlike other areas, they don't get to cool down at night. They just stay hot. So it was unbelievable. I can't imagine playing 3 or 5 sets in that. So we had some cramping issues, some of the guys. But yeah, amazing experience, and just that really showed me kind of like the different levels of tennis. But it doesn't really matter what level. Like they are fighting, man. Like they're trying. They're trying to win for their country. Granted, smaller countries, but it was really cool to see.
I think sometimes it's better to go down in professional level to get like that dedication and love and passion, because there's no real money involved. Really, like I mean, it's difficult as a tennis player. If you're ranked 500, you're not making a good living from tennis. I mean, we all know how that works, right? Unless you're a YouTuber as well, maybe. But it's tricky. And then you have these guys really working and putting their like life on the line, kind of, you know, at least their spirit on the court for their country in Davis Cup. And we don't see that a lot in tennis, because tennis is very much an individual sport. So players are always playing for themselves. It's a lot about prize money, especially if you're a futures player. I mean, it's very tough to come by any kind of prize money that's decent. So it's like also about traveling around the world chasing some ranking points, some money. So it's nice to see this kind of country spirit, you know, and especially like when it's kind of amicable, that the countries get along, you know, and it's like a good spirit. And did you notice that it's kind of a famous spirit that Davis Cup brings?
Yeah. I mean, like the Billie Jean count when we went, like it was intense. Like it's great to see like a very intimate environment. Like you don't have the kind of bells and whistles at these lower like group 4, group 5, group 3 levels, but the passion is still there. It's just very clear. And you get the flags waving and stuff. It's the same feel, just maybe a little bit less volume overall. So.
Yeah, we want tennis to do well in countries where it hasn't maybe historically been very popular, right? Like I don't know the story in Cambodia, but when we see tennis like growing in the Middle East or in certain parts of Asia where it hasn't been popular, it's nice. You know, you want the sport to do well, but it's sometimes an uphill battle because it's kind of a money-driven sport. You need like a coach is expensive, rackets are expensive, bags are expensive. Everything around tennis is not cheap. Court time and so on. So it's nice to see these countries like grow the popularity of the sport a bit.
Yeah, I mean, especially Cambodia. Like it's obviously near and dear to my heart, being of Cambodian background. But one crazy stat is, I think this was I don't know if it's outdated now, but back in 2013, it was 30 courts in the entire country. I know facilities that have 50 courts, right? You know, obviously a bunch of facilities have more than that. And I don't think it's grown that much. And that just shows you like tennis in Cambodia and Southeast Asia overall was pretty strong. But Cambodia was one of the exceptions in the growth. Like you see the Thai, Vietnamese have some pretty big players, but Cambodia is different. And I think the big reason for that is because of the war and the genocide that happened. It essentially reset their country. When that happened, they were going after academics and athletes. So in particular, just to make sure that it's kind of ground zero. So that obviously really hurts any type of sports, especially tennis. So yeah, it's a fight back. And one of the things I'm proud of, it's not the most or the best production value, but we did a short documentary on the story of tennis. It was actually part of my graduate dissertation. Understanding how tennis evolved, but essentially it was me and a handful of orphans holding boom mics and going out and shooting this documentary to tell the story. It's called A Tennis Return. It's on Vimeo. I can probably share it with you, Jonas, later, but it's something that's cool. It's something that I'm proud of. It's I think there's a lot of power in storytelling. I think that when you see and hear a story, it makes you, you know, understand and want to help and things like that. So that's what really drove me to help Tennis Cambodia, especially with ADV now. I'm a bit more capable to do that. So
what are you trying to do? What's your initiative? And I will share the link of the documentary, because I think that's a great way as you describe it. Like storytelling is important for people to also get like that connection to a place. You know, like if they haven't been there, it's good to watch something to understand like a part of the history, but also part of what they're going through, because
Yep.
We're all different in parts of the world, right? So, but so how is your work and actively right now with Tennis Cambodia?
Yeah, I mean, we pledge 5% of profits from ADV to initiatives like in Haiti and Atlanta. But to be frank, the vast majority of that goes to Tennis Cambodia. I want to be very targeted and meaningful with the dollars that we give there, just to make sure that it has the most impact. So a couple of things we've done. We sponsored one of the better grassroots players. He's 14 or 15 now, but we started when he was around, I think, 11. He looks like he's much younger just because of nutrition issues and things like that. And that was the one of the things that the money helps with is nutrition and travel throughout Southeast Asia, going to Malaysia and Thailand and things like that to play. That's one example. We also help fund through another nonprofit the creation of stories or books that tell kids about tennis. So it helps with literacy at schools, but also kind of sheds light on tennis and also other racket sports like badminton and things like that, which are popular in that area also. So we're looking at some other initiatives this year, potentially around giving shoes, because in the documentary, you'll see that a lot of kids don't have shoes. And I was there recently, and it's still true. They don't have a lot of shoes. And they hit pretty good balls. So imagine being shoeless and still striking the ball pretty well. So yeah, we have a lot more planned. Like, it's just something that we want to really improve. At the same time, I know there's a lot of other countries that are similar boats, right? Like that aren't well known for tennis. But believe me when I say there will be tennis players everywhere in the world that are trying to get better. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's like probably one of the best ways of getting tennis in, really into a country, like, and getting people excited about tennis is to at least have one player do something, right? Like, so sponsoring the biggest talent, although it sounds like you're only doing kind of individual focus, but that's really to grow the interest in the sport for the whole country, right? So I think, like, with tennis being an individual sport, you see this in different parts of history. Like, okay, we have even if they only have one player, but if he breaks through, maybe wins a tournament, does something, then suddenly, like, the tennis boom is there and things start happening.
Yep. One of my all-time favorite players, and he breaks the mold for most Asian tennis players. You probably guess who it is. It's better than Shishipen. Super, like, I just love watching the guy play. Like, he's like a beast on there and on court. Like, one of our posts way back when, like 5-6 years ago, we reposted a tennis TV thing of him, one of his best rallies or something. And then he gave it the little fist pump fire emoji comment on it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I was pumped. So shout out to Paradon if he's listening.
Yeah, you do remember. It's crazy. Like, I think he was one of the first players, at least that you remember, that was doing like the splits and stuff, like doing these amazing physical feats. And then now it's more kind of connected to Djokovic in our minds, maybe. But like, he was one of those first guys that just had extreme, explosivity when his movement, and it was really like a fighter out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's one player I really remember. But so in Cambodia, like, where do you think tennis can go? And how long does it need to take? Do you think, like, if you keep with your like long-term plan, at least to try to help the country build up some kind of tennis infrastructure?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, man. Like, we don't have obviously enough funds to really help them grow. We can help in some initiatives, but they really do depend, and much like other federations and smaller companies, and even some bigger countries, to be honest, like, there's just not enough money to fund the players, facilities, and things. So it's tough. I think the key is building the right infrastructure, bringing the right people in, the right personnel on the ground, because external influences like ADV can only help so much, right? I think building that in-house correctly with the right people, bring the right coaches in, getting the right player development in, getting the right level of, budgeting, financing to make sure that travel is appropriately spent or budget is appropriately spent, things like that. I think that all go into it. So I do want to help, and we'll try to find more creative ways to do it. But at the end of the day, I think there's bigger sponsorships that will probably really be helpful. More ITF intervention that always helps. They've been helpful with Cambodia in the past. I think they are in the future too. But yeah, I think the governing bodies need to help. Overall, I think there just needs to be some sort of, I don't know, restructuring or change within those ranks. It's just so hard, like for these smaller countries to get a foot. Unless, like you said, you have that big star who brings attention and brings money into the country. Like Thailand, I think they play Group Two. I know the Ratatawana twins, they're great guys. They kind of brought kind of some fame there, also, and more publicity, as they're kind of one of the better doubles teams like 5-6 years ago or so. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's hard to answer a question. We want to do what we can. And that being said, I also want to explore other countries too. Like it just so if anybody, honestly, if anybody has really interesting initiatives or similar stories that need some funding, and again, not huge amounts of funding. We're not as big as the Wilsons and things like that, but we definitely want to help out. I'm definitely open to hearing that. So
That's nice of you, and I think it's important. Like I don't know what the initiative is from like the ITF side of things or the bigger brands and organizations to grow tennis outside the kind of standard places where tennis is huge, like in most parts of Europe, the US, and so on, right? So I don't know if there are any initiatives of like, money going into tennis and then going to developing countries or places where tennis is not as popular, because I think we as a sport need to kind of make sure that it's as broad as possible and not just like limited to the usual hotspots.
yeah, I mean, there's talent everywhere. Like look at Ons, Tunisia. Like there's just like these random hotspots. You just never know. And like I can't remember. There's a few countries that have like a absurdly high density of talented players. That they're doing something right, and I think other countries or regions are capable of doing the same. So it's just a matter of having that spark. So
Yeah, because tennis, it has a little bit of a threshold, right? So the costs and stuff, and that's why you need to make sure that the money goes to the right direction, but also like that you have enough money, like maybe from ITF, and I don't know what other brands do, like if there are something initiatives from other brands that are going to certain places or certain federations. I'm not really aware of that, and I don't think that, since I'm not aware of that, and maybe not you either, is that we need better information flows, like what's happening in other parts of the world where to grow tennis. Like, are there any initiatives that are not really marketed, on a big scale? Because I think tennis is one of those sports. I think most sports are maybe like this, but it's one of those sports that get really stuck in like following the top 10 players in ATP and WTA, and like when you go outside that, the interest is dwindles quickly, right? Like, I mean, we don't even care about doubles, right? Really, most people don't. So that's an issue. It's like this focus on just creating more and more content around the best players in the world, and then we're kind of leaving out like a lot of the grassroots and a lot of other parts of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly argue that there's really good storytelling to be had that could generate a lot of buzz. Like I think Breakpoint, I think Breakpoint on Netflix got a lot of attention for tennis. Some things I liked a lot, some things I did not like so much. I think it's a little polarizing, but I think tennis needs to take advantage of this, like this storytelling more across the smaller countries, because I think people are willing to help. Like one small story, like I used to coach a women's team in Atlanta. Great group of ladies. I shared with them the documentary, and next Wednesday during practice, they just brought a bunch of stuff just all over. Like, just here you go, give this to Cambodia. I'm like, logistically hard, but this is really appreciated. So I think people are willing to help. I think that story needs to be told and that light needs to be shined. So I think that's one of the things I want to invest in. If you told me like what's the wish list I have, I would say like have the funds to really tell the story of grassroots tennis throughout like the lower levels of Davis Cup. How like a 9-year-old kid growing up in Malaysia or Cambodia can really improve. And I think I personally think that's fascinating, because like I resonate personally more with that kind of story than ever aspiring to be like Fed. Like it's different. So I think there's something there. I would love to see that happen at some point.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Like, and I think there obviously, like you say, loads and loads of stories, that you can build interest around, because like if you're a good storyteller, you can take pretty much anything and make a good story. So I think there's something there, you know. And we do see a little bit of sometimes on social media, you know, like players playing on some very, very crappy courts. You know, you're seeing like the equipment, but you see the love for tennis is there. They made a court on like a dirt patch or something, you know, and that's nice. But then the question is, what do you do with that? Like, how can you take this visual and like create something positive instead of just having it as kind of like a viral movement of tennis, you know?
Yep, 100%, man.
So for you guys, like ADV, you're most famous for bags, right? So that's I'm a big fan of your pro bag. It's what's in the background here. It's the bag I use regularly. So what? Well, how like did it start? How did your story start? How did you decide to get into tennis? You know, out of all things.
Yeah, I really obviously love tennis, and I wanted to have a career in it. And I started a company before ADV. It was called Shot Stats, and this is before the world of like swing vision and play metrics with tracking. This was a onboard dampener, on racket damper that had a screen and a polycarbonate full of gyroscopes, accelerometers, and magnetometers, with the sole purpose of giving you metrics in real time on your racket. So you could give it a threshold of like you need to swing over 30 miles per hour head speed. If you don't, it gives you a beep, and then all this data is slung over into your into an app for tracking, and it gives you insights. And this was back in like 2012 when this wasn't a thing. We raised a bit of investment money. We had a Kickstarter campaign, so it was going pretty well. But ultimately, it did not work out. We underestimated the cost of production, things like that. We actually made all the technology open source, so people can take advantage of it, so it's not gone to waste. But then from that experience, I knew that I still knew I wanted to do tennis, but I wanted to do it in a different way. I wanted to think about profitability and sustainability of it first, as opposed to kind of like trying to build something, raise money, and grow it that way. So then I was like, what can I solve really simply? And to be honest, that was a tennis dampener. I'm a big data guy, so we scraped some data on Amazon and noticed that there were some interesting stats around how many dampeners are being sold on Amazon. So knowing that, we developed a dampener that I would argue it works pretty well in the fact that it stays on, has 3 different sizes to match your style, and has very minute differences in feel. And it's one of those products that I think the perception of it really makes you feel like it's like it helps you in tennis. I think a lot of tennis is perception based like that too. But I really like the dampeners, and they were a bestseller for a while, enough so that we were able to take some profits from that and grow the company and do overgrips, wristbands. We did strings at one point, and ultimately we grew the company to the point where we were able to really do innovative, like really truly super innovative products from the ground up. And I was like, what is something that I want to be better? Like, honestly, that's what I took the approach. Maybe not the best product research, but it was essentially the tennis bag. I thought the tennis bags just weren't thought through compared to some of my camera bags and things like that, where they're very robust, have all these pockets, all these like bells and whistles. Like, that hasn't been done for tennis. So I found a really great designer who's actually ex-Prince rackets, or Prince Tennis. He used to work on their bags. And he told me like the briefs and things like that, they weren't so detailed as mine. Like I gave him the world, like, to help design after all the different problems I had. And then, yeah, that's how the first bag, the Pro V1, came out. Now we're the Pro V3, and we launched a backpack. We launched also a pickleball bag, and we're in heavy research development for another bag. As a hint, it's a smaller backpack, because something that people were asking for. But yeah, we're super proud of the bags, and I think I use them every day. I use my backpack every day for office and sometimes on the court. And yeah, it's been a fun journey, man.
So, like, when you started designing the bag, like, did you think of all the things that annoyed you with like current bags? I think the most famous thing about like tennis bags before like smaller manufacturers and smaller like up and coming brands like yourself started coming, was that it's like, okay, it's a big bag full of logos and quite colorful usually, and they have the same functionality. Like they would put like maybe one or two thermal pockets for the rackets, and then one big middle pocket, and that would be pretty much it. Like sometimes they would have a shoe pocket of some kind, but it didn't seem, and that they would have like, okay, monster big size or like 12 rackets, or it would be like a small one, and the quality would be a little bit so and so, and it felt like something they came up with just like as an afterthought, like, okay, we have to also make some money, or we should brand something so we have the logo out there, but we're not going to put a lot of the effort into this. That's always how it felt. Maybe it's changed a little bit with all the up and coming brands, but overall that was the feeling I had, at least.
Yeah, I don't think bags were like a big point for big companies. They had rackets, right? We're not going to venture to do rackets, and like Wilson and Yonex have great rackets. I play with Yonex. I just don't think that they would invest the time. I don't think it should worth as much for them. That being said, Wilson's come up with some pretty cool bags that I like some of the materials and things. But for our design process, we wanted to look at first, one of the things is aesthetic, right? I don't like billboards. I don't want to be a billboard for a brand. Even my own brand, I don't want to be a billboard. I want the bag to stand out for itself. So it's very minimal branding. Like I think you have the Midnight. The Midnight even has like even smaller branding.
It's very very minimal, but I like it. Like it's like the logo is kind of there if you look at it, but it's you have to almost search for it. But it's like the bag, like you said, the bag stands out on it itself. So if people see it, they'd be like, oh, well, what's this bag? This looks cool. This looks like a sleek bag. People ask me instead of like seeing the logo, which has a stronger connection then, like that, then there's more likelihood that they would buy that product than if it's like just a huge logo everywhere. I just feel like that, it's like better to get asked about it.
No, I agree. And we left a lot of real estate open for people to brand it themselves. Like you can do a screen print, like for the backpack I use, we just did a screen print of Tennis Cambodia.
Oh, that's cool.
There. So it's very conducive for that. So aesthetics is one thing. We really want to have great materials and hardware. So the zippers are all YKK. So the well-known Japanese company makes zippers. Like I think from size 3 to size 10. Size 10 is like the same as like luggage, really good travel pro luggage. We use Coder nylon. I think one at 700D. Maybe don't quote me on that. That's the thickness level of it, but essentially that material it's something that's more. You can think of it as like what Patagonia would use in some of the bags and their jackets and things like that. So it's definitely not the typical kind of nylon feel. So we wanted to work on aesthetics, materials, durability, but then also just the next one is features. Like I come from a tech background. I did 12 years working in product. And what I've learned is iteration is great. Like you just like want to keep on asking the questions, making it better. So that's why we went V3, right? So V1 had some of the core features, which is a cooler, the hooks, shoe, sweat pocket, ventilation, all that type of stuff. V2 had some upgrades. V3 we had a toilet 3 pockets. We made the hooks better. We have a new and improved hidden pocket. I'm not sure if you even found that yet, Jonas. It's really hidden. And then what else do we have? We have a bunch of other features that are really cool. So every time we want to release every time we do a big pressure round, we want to do a new version. Just like kind of like Apple does it. And it's funny, man. Like we get some people who do treat like iPhones. They get the first one and like the next one comes out and they get it and they get the third and they just kind of collect them. So that's interesting to see. It's cool. So hopefully they gift them the old ones, something like that. So
yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. I mean, I think you want to make sure that the bags improve, right? So and the iterative approach is important. Like with rackets, they sometimes do it, but with rackets it's tricky because players they're so connected to the feeling of the racket, right? So if you change the feel, then people don't like it. Maybe that could be something off. But when you have a product which is like the functionality product, like a bag, you're like, okay, this bag is great, but it needs maybe this, or it could be improved. So how do you work with customer feedback? Where do you collect all the feedback, and do you have like a process for that of like what feedback to use for your next iteration?
Yeah, we do customer interviews virtually. So I have a calendar link that I send to folks. Um, and yeah, we ask a lot of questions. We ask current customers what they like with the bag, but more importantly, what they don't like. We ask them how they use the bag in different ways, like more workaround ways to learn. Like one good example is one coach told us that on the Pro, on the other side with the one sleeve pocket, he couldn't fit a manila folder. He has like papers to give to his kids, and it just wouldn't fit. And I was like, oh shit, it doesn't fit. And then the top lip was just seamed a little bit lower. So all I did was just move the seam up. So now it perfectly fits a folder. And it's small things like that that I do want to care about, and it just makes a big difference when you do, in aggregate. So yeah, a lot of customer feedback. We do surveys, try to get overall feedback about what to do next, brand new features that people like, things like that. So yeah, we try to do the cycles every 4 to 6 months or so. But definitely, if folks have really cool ideas on features they want on bags or things like that, just please reach out to me. Always happy to hear it. So
How passionate are people about bags? It's something I think like is increasing, right? Like I what I've seen from, I mean, people are pretty obsessed about their rackets and maybe checking out new strings. You know, more products are coming out every year. But also like the important part is the bag. And we have like a situation where, let's say you're playing a bubble out racket and you have a bubble out bag. And that's like a bag that just tagged along with the racket, or like you just bought it on as a side note. But then you want to move to the blade or a Yonex racket, and you're like, okay, I can't have a bubble out bag and a Yonex racket, right? So it is sensible in a way to be like, okay, I have a neutral bag that I like, that works,
yeah,
you know. And then if
yeah,
you're changing racket models, you don't have to care about that. You don't have to like reinvest in a new bag the whole time to match your rackets, because then you also get this like, am I a fake pro? You know, like this is, some people look like they're Roger Federer and then they can't hit the ball. You know, this is kind of classic club level situation.
yeah, yeah. I don't. That's a huge thing, man. Like the loyalty, like the having like offering a neutral bag, like that does actually come into play quite a bit. People have mentioned that, and I just think people want something different. Like I think there's, as much as there's loyalty, I think that people embrace the difference. Like it may be just like a sample of one. Like I don't know if, I think this is way back when the Beast string came out. Like it was just like this hidden brand. I think Prince was behind it at the end of the day, or Bab. I'm not sure, but it was so like intriguing. It's like, what is this brand? Who is it? Who is this all about? Like it's just, there's like that level of intrigue that I think that our bags give off. That I think is really, it's interesting, and that's something that I didn't really think of initially, but I think came about. So
Yeah, I think so. And that also like that there is an iteration process. So it also looks like, okay, oh, they will keep improving because it's already V3. Like that sends a message to the customer that you are working on something new, and that's always trying to take customer feedback, as we talked about, and improve it. You know, I think that's generally a good thing, that people respect, that it's like, okay, this is the evolution of the previous one, you know. And it's even better for you guys, obviously, if they keep buying like a new bag, because they're like, oh, I like this bag, but what's new? What's even better in this one, you know? And like for the backpack, like that, my friend Nils also has, who I played with yesterday, because he bikes to the tennis club. Like I always drive. I have loads of rackets. I mainly use the Pro bag, but for him, he's biking because he can bike to the tennis club where he's also working, kind of. So he's like in love with the backpack because if it's raining, he can like cover it. You know, cover the rackets. That's a pretty nifty feature that not all backpacks have, and it has a, like now you're talking about the smaller bag, but this one has quite a lot of space, so you can really like take it on a plane or you know, carry a lot of stuff in it, you know, which is really appreciated, I think.
yeah, I mean that's my everyday bag. Like that bag I just like showed, like it's that I take to my office, which is a coffee shop or the gym or something like that. But I can take it on a flight. I like a two night stay, two maybe three. I pack super light. We actually have packing cubes that work like designed for it really well. They're actually cool. The packing cubes, to be very honest, that's probably my wife's favorite products. She works on the marketing. She has a marketing for ADV, but she loves the packing cube more than anything else because she uses it for everything. Like some weird use cases for it. I have some family members who they put makeup in it, something like that. But it's real use cases as two-sided. One side is for clean clothes. When it gets dirty, you stick it to the other side, which is a antimicrobial silver ion lining to keep it not so stinky. It has a new zipper now to keep it leak proof, so sweaty stuff doesn't come out. And when you're done, you take the sweaty stuff, throw in the wash, and now you have a cube to use. So yeah, it's interesting. Travel, like this one thing I want to do better is travel with the bags. The small bag can be carried on officially. The big bag, it's not officially TSA compliant. I have traveled with it all over the world, especially domestically in the US. There's no issue. To be honest, I had one issue, and that was a flight from Cambodia to Seoul, Korea. Ultimately, I was able to get it in. I had to talk to him a little bit longer. So
you check it in? I mean, or you take it on the plane?
I do, yeah.
Oh, yeah, wow.
I do.
Okay, the pro bag.
The pro bag, yeah.
It's impressive. That's nice of them because I wouldn't dare do that. I usually check it in and it's fine, but it's been no problem. But if you can bring it, even better. People are very iffy about putting rackets in a racket bag and then checking it in because you've seen the horror stories of players like they go into tournament and like they have 6 cracked rackets when they open the bag. But I usually check in like a heavy duty luggage, and I put the rackets in that one, and then I put clothes and stuff in the tennis bag in case I need a tennis bag during my trip. So, I mean, obviously it's 2 bags, but yeah, it's a bit tricky sometimes to put rackets in a soft bag. Then if you can take it in on the plane, well, then that would be the optimal solution,
I may have to talk to you, Jonas, about some future research and development on a hard shell racket check-in bag, something like that, just to make sure, something indestructible. So
yeah, I like indestructible bags. That's kind of what I use. So the bags in your like product line is what's selling the best, or I mean, you like you said, you had like overgrips, dampeners, wristbands. You have 2 different kinds of overgrips, and a cap and so on, right? Like, is the bag your main thing now?
The bag, I mean, they are our flagship product. They are definitely the most expensive of all the products. We probably sell less of them than our smaller accessories just because the price is so much higher. But they are our kind of our bread and butter. We shift a lot of our research development to the bags and continually make them better. So yeah, I would say it's true. I think we are introducing some other products. One is our training kit, our version 2. So the problem I had when I was a coach is I could tell family A, B, and C to get item X, Y, Z, A, B, C, all that stuff, right? And just like get the wrists, get a jump rope, get this. So come to class 10 minutes early, and do your warm up. So you have to waste time. And the problem was like they would go on Amazon, they would ask me a lot of questions on what to get, what resistance level of the band to get, and it would end up costing $100 or something like that. So I was like, there's gonna be a better way. So I worked with some folks and tried to find what's a good kit of things that you could give an athlete or a tennis player for them to use to warm up, to cool down, to prevent injury, and all that stuff. So it's a collection of like a reaction ball, jump rope, 3 resistance bands, cones, all these type of things to give them a shortcut. And I think it's reasonably priced for all the stuff you get in it. So that's actually just launched or will be launching very soon now. And we got some pretty cool content creators also helping to help make some cool useful content around each piece. So
yeah, that's the one I brought out to a friend of mine who is a coach. I'm not a coach. I mainly log around rackets and play tennis, but he was really impressed by how he was a very good coach. He used to coach be on the team for an ATP top 50 player, right? So this guy knows his stuff. But for him, it was just natural. Like, he never saw this kit before, but he was like, okay, this is used for this. And he has a 10-year-old girl he's coaching who's very, very talented and very ambitious. And he just put all the products to work straight away in like a circuit, right, for her. And I was really like impressed that he, partly by the products itself, because it was just like, okay, we thought through that what you can do with it, and that made her get like a great warm up, because they do like 2 hours every day of training, right? So she really wants to go pro, like, and I see a lot of kids playing, and she's one that can go pro as well. I think she has
It's great.
The skills for it, and then the dedication. Obviously, you never know what happens, when you're only 10. But yeah, that was an impressive way, and also like very easy for him then to have the bag, and then just like, okay, let's do the skipping rope, let's do the reaction ball, and he could just do the circle, which is also a bit more fun for if you have a kid, right? Like this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then you are warmed up and ready to go for hitting some balls. So that's it's a good product. I think that has a lot of potential, like from my point of view as well, right? Like maybe not for 40-year-old tennis players, although they should get it maybe more than anyone else. But like for any coach or anyone like with tennis playing kids or juniors, I think it could be amazing, right?
Yeah. You're right. My kid, my 6-year-old, he has to be told in numbers and sequences what to do. So he loves that. So the circuit idea works well.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is that's great. And I think sometimes it's funny, like I usually encourage people, like let's say players who are 35 to 55 or whatever, and they tennis nerds, right? People listening to this, watching YouTube videos, and they really want to improve. Like, so they really want to get better at tennis. But part of my audience, including myself historically maybe, they're like, oh, the best way to improve in tennis is to buy a new racket, and that's, as we know, most people in the back of our head, it's not really the way to improve. It's like, okay, you have a racket, that's probably fine. You find the string and so on, right? But it's like working on your reaction, on your footwork, and like putting in a small investment in a product like this, and then doing the work, right? Like making sure that you actually warm up every time for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that you have in your schedule. And then you will improve as a player, instead of just keep searching for this holy grail of a racket that will improve your forehand, like Roger. So that's the thing I usually tell people, but then, I don't know if they actually do it. It's something that would be very recommended, right? Generally for any age, right? Like if you want to improve, you also have to improve your functional skills, not only your racket and string.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we got some of our content creators to make specific, like they focus on coaching, and they had each like one section, like we had Jonathan Stokey work on shot foundations, fundamentals, how to use the gear for that. Ashley from Tennis Mentor, he did agility, reaction, improving that. And then Micah from Micah Bevel Tennis did injury prevention and recovery. So it's kind of these 3 kind of fundamental pillars. They all kind of cross over a little bit, but ultimately, like, they don't take that long to do, right? They're good things to do. You don't need to do all of them all the time, but like having your own regiment that you can base off of, I think from that core set of drills, I think would be really good.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think putting in a little bit of that into your schedule will really shift. Like I talk always about the HIIT programs I do. I started doing them a year ago, and it's really helped me, like footwork and strength overall, and not being injured, So, and like this kind of kit would also help just getting to the court. Okay, making sure all the body parts are ready for tennis, because otherwise, like if you just go to play, you might be injured, if especially a little bit older woman or man, then it can easily happen, and then you can't play tennis for a certain time. So it's not ideal, right?
Yep 100%. I should use it more myself.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can get it, but then we have to also use it. That's important. When it comes to our favorite sport, pickleball, usually listeners say like, oh no, I have to unsubscribe now. They're talking about pickleball, but I respect pickleball. So like your bags around pickleball, have you been able to kind of crack that market? Do you see pickleballers being interested in? Because from what I understand, like, and I have been to like pickleball shops and recently published a video on my other YouTube channel, Tennis Nerd 2, where we went through like what pickleball rackets or paddles, they're called, of course, how they, like, what the technology, the innovation is going crazy. Things are moving at breakneck speeds, and I can imagine like there is a desire and an interest in like a good bag if you're a pickleball player.
Yeah, I mean, so our bags are top of the market. The price point is higher than most bags. And for tennis, we thought that works because I think rackets are 250 plus 270 sometimes, right? And tennis players are they really care about tennis and they want to invest in it. Um, I did question pickleball if that was the case because pickleball I think is I didn't think there was that premium at the high top of the market is that big. That being said, paddle prices have gone skyrocketed. Like you can, I think they're like 250, 280 now, for some like a single paddle. And what I've learned also is that people like tennis players restring, but in pickleball, you actually need to get a new paddle if it gets delaminated or things like that. They want to try something different. So it's not surprising to see a someone who's I guess a pickleball nerd have like 8 to 10 paddles. So we did get into the pickleball bag space. It's called the Pickleball Pro. We did a Kickstarter last summer. It did pretty well. And yeah, that bag is very unique. It opens like a clam. It holds up 10 paddles. Has inside or interior and exterior cooler access. A shoe compartment that doubles as a extra paddle pocket, but it's really unique. That bag, I think, is probably the most unique of the three, in the fact that it operates differently than a normal bag, and it's definitely tailored to a tournament. So when you go into a tournament, rather than every day, and to be honest, it works just as well for a tennis racket. It can fit 2 rackets in the back instead of paddles if you like. And then we have the backpack, which is a tennis backpack V2 and the pickleball backpack V2. They're actually the same product, but we try to do a marketing to show that it can be used for paddles and pickleball use cases and tennis use cases. But ultimately, it's a very versatile backpack that you can use for pickleball and tennis. And for those who play paddle, like it fits paddles too. So it's kind of we want to look at the brand as like, we started in tennis, but we want to expand and get to all the use cases, but not at the detriment of tennis or tennis use cases. So, but yeah, pickleball is interesting for sure. I enjoy it. It's fun. I have no animosity towards it. It's a fun sport. I love how it gets people together. You can't just go to a tennis court and just say, let's go play some doubles, guys, and just pick. It's just hard. You can't do that. But in pickleball, it's normal to do that. So.
Yeah, I think that's really impressive, and I think there's stuff to learn from that. Like, how can we make tennis more inviting and more accessible, like using green dot balls and lighter rackets for the beginners, or having beginner doubles of some kind, like making your club a little bit more inviting. One of my standard clubs here in the south of Spain is like they have mixed doubles. So it's like, any level, you can be a beginner, and you mix around like the teams, and you play like for 3 hours, but you mix around. It's very social. I think that's a great way of addressing tennis, because tennis can be so competitive and very kind of like elitist in a way. And I think we could learn a bit from pickleball. And what you said about the pickleball paddle is quite interesting, because I learned that like when I went to California in November, is that like the paddles really go dead. I mean, some thermoform paddles, they actually become more lively, like strings. But overall, most pickleball paddles go dead. And it doesn't take that long. Like, I think he told me like a pro plays like 1 paddle per tournament. So after a tournament, the paddle is dead. So I don't think people know that. I think you can just buy a paddle and use it for like 5 years. But it's a sport that requires reinvestments, in new paddles. And with tennis, you can buy a racket. And let's say you're not like you're a doubles veteran player, whatever. You put some string and you play with it for 20 years. 10 years, it's happened. You see it, But here you actually need to get new paddles, because they start going dead out after a certain time.
You got me thinking. So one thing, I'm not sure if I shared this with you, but this is super tennis nerdy of me. But in grad school, my dissertation, I think I alluded to before, was on the evolution of tennis as a sport, and using that as a framework for other sports and like their trajectory. So I was like an 80-page thesis or dissertation on tennis. It was fun because it was tennis, but essentially it was like a 3-phase thing where you had the racket evolution, or the materials revolution that kind of made it from wood to composite, or to metal to composites, to all sorts of materials now, different strings, etc. And then it had to shift into the market. The tennis had to morph into the player. So they had to shift to the smaller players, the kids. Like, how do you morph it? Because you can't. It's just, you're physically different for you, and also for the more recreational player, which I think is incredibly important. Like it's one thing to be very good at tennis, but like, it's the vast majority of players, just they're the more recreational, because tennis is a hard game, right? So like things like cardio tennis really evolved into it. And I think pickleball, if I was to rewrite that dissertation, I think pickleball and these other racket sports that are more social, I think are very important it's like an existential issue for tennis. I think they need to find a way to make it broader, because it is a difficult game. It's a very rewarding game because it's so difficult. Like, you hit a great forehand on the line. You don't just do that. Like, you don't just go out, like, if you never played tennis, and do that. You have to train for years. So I think there's something there. Definitely, I think there's another phase of the evolution to be done.
Yeah, and it's something to be aware of, I think, because like tennis is obviously relying on top ambassadors like Roger, Rafa, Novak, really pulling strings that for the interest of the game. But then also for players who get interested, like, what is the progression? Because you always need progression. Like, where do I start to get into something? And like pickleball nailed it, but how can we do it better? Because tennis has been around for ages, and it's like it's a beautiful sport when you know how to play it. But it's like that first few months or a first year or two, it can be really frustrating. And like, that's very easy. I think if you would look at data, I would say like probably a lot of people give up quite early in the process because it's so demanding, right? Like, you need to put in so much effort. But then as you get into it and as you decide to commit to it, it gets more rewarding. So you're like, okay, I'm having more fun with tennis than pickleball and paddle, but it took me a while, right? Like, so there's also obviously like a reward at the end if you put in the time investment. But for some people, that's not feasible. So then obviously pickleball and paddle. And I think hopefully, and I've heard that as well, and maybe it bears out in the data, is like people actually move between the sports. Maybe they can start with pickleball or paddle or whatever, and then move to tennis, And I think the sports kind of need each other to be like a racket sports thing, So we shouldn't have too much hate towards each other, because I think really we're going to benefit from each other's existence, in a way at some point.
Yeah, 100%. I think a collaboration or cooperation between the sports would be very good. Not to go on a tangent, but I think there's also a collaboration between or coordination between ATP, WTA. I think that could be very beneficial also. But yeah, I think tennis has some things to figure out there. But yeah, I'm also excited about paddle. I keep on saying, yeah, I've been told so many times it's not padel, just paddle. But in America, everyone says padel for some reason.
I think it's because like a paddle, you think of like, I mean, if you say pickleball paddle, people know what it is. Like, so you're thinking of a paddle that you're hitting, right? So maybe it's actually better in a way to call. I mean, most of my American friends say padel as well, and my Dutch friends say padel. So maybe that's what it should be called. But here we say paddles, right? So it's like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter because we know what we mean. But it's an interesting one. But definitely that is growing, and I think it's gonna go and grow in the US quite a bit as well, right? So we can see that happening as well. And that's good. Like, more sports, the better. Sports bring people together. We talked about Davis Cup, and in like smaller countries, and it's so important to have sports, especially when there's like tough times. It's like sports can give you like a highlight in your day. It's a very important thing to have.
Yeah, it's like it's one of the few common languages that bring peoples together. Like, there's music, there's sport, there's art, but I just think it's magical. Like, if it can be done right, I think it's such a powerful thing. I think for kids, for adults, for anybody, just to say it's great, man. It's great. It's made my life a lot better in general, just from many aspects. So
same. You did mention Kickstarter. Like, how important has I wanted to ask you that. Like, how important has that been for you, like in your journey, to be able to get some funding for your ideas before they become reality?
Yes, it's interesting. We use Kickstarter as to be really honest, we use it more as a marketing channel to see how much organic awareness or traffic we can bring via Kickstarter, as opposed to needing it to drive the funding of our production runs. We were going to do the production runs anyway, but we wanted to see if Kickstarter could really give us a boost in getting that initial audience. I think it was very important for our first bag launch, but now that we have a decent audience and a pretty good presence, that it may not be necessary to do Kickstarter, but we'll definitely keep on doing launches. I think we'll always kind of grow hype about the new products and things, but I don't know if we do it again at Kickstarter. But that being said, Kickstarter is a good experience. Like, I mean, it's the people buying Kickstarter are really your evangelists. Like they're supporting you, because there's never a guarantee that you actually get our product when you do on a Kickstarter. For us, it was more or less a guarantee because we already were going to do it anyway, and we had the funds for it. But yeah, I don't regret doing it. I think it was great to get us kind of where we are now.
Yeah, it seems like a good approach, and I think it's important to think of marketing and visibility as well. Like, so I thought about that. Like, what would be your next level? Like, would we see an ADV bag on some pro player? But for that to happen, it's obviously an issue in tennis. It's like, okay, if you play with a Wilson racket, you have a Wilson bag. If you play with Babbler racket, you have a Babbler bag. So it's tricky for a bag manufacturer, even if you make, like they say, the best bag on the market, that to get a pro to actually carry it on to the court. Have you thought about that conundrum?
So the way we kind of went around that was the hypothesis is that if someone sees, I'm just throwing out a player right now, Taylor Fritz's coach, Michael Russell, have the ADV bag, that's just as effective as if Taylor Fritz was using that bag. We could say that Taylor Fritz's coach, Michael Russell, uses the bag, which he does not. It's just, that's just an example. But that's one avenue we looked into, is like, how can you approach tour level coaches with this? And because I think not all of them have the same deal as their player. I could be wrong, but I don't think all of them do, even the high level ones. So I think they wouldn't say no to a good bag that they can use while they travel on court, all that type of stuff. So that's one channel we're looking into. We made some crossroads into that. So there's some pro coaches using it. But as for players, it's not a big investment point for us. Like you said, like if they're big enough to get to have a lot of influence or high rank, they're usually under contract. That being said, like a lot of content creators and influencers arguably have more reach than players too, which I've learned. I'm sure you know too, Jonas. Like it sometimes it makes more sense to collaborate with content creators. So.
How up on your social media game are you? Like, working on like content ideas for yourself, or like dealing with content creators? I know you're doing, and we talked about the upcoming content for the bag, right? Like the training kit. But are you like really following, like, how can we create more exciting content, making sure you're like aware of what's happening on social media and so on?
Yeah. So my wife, Maybelline, co-founder, and she leads up the marketing side, definitely has a lot going on in the content on the content world. Teaming up with really awesome content creators. We're going to create some of our own. We try to get pretty elaborate with some of our review videos. Like, I try to have fun with it a little bit. We do try to make it to tournaments and share that experience. Kind of the lens of not like ADV, but also as a fan. So I'm a fan of tennis. Like, we go to the US Open every year. To be honest, half business, half pleasure, right? It's fun to be in your city, seeing the US Open. So yeah, I think content's a huge piece. Like, I don't think we're ever going to have like a great podcast, a YouTube channel like you, Jonas, but like, it's something that, I think it's something we want to get better at over time.
How good is the US Open? Is it worth going? I have to ask you now. It's kind of my final question for my personal reason.
Have you not been to the US Open?
I have not been. I was thinking, now that I didn't go to Indian Wells, I should go.
Oh my goodness, yes. So I've been to all four, had the privilege to go to all four. Wimbledon, as you expect, is probably the most proper, kind of low key, still very fun. The French has its own unique vibe. Aussie and the US Open are more like party time type atmospheres. Like, especially, I've been at the US Open until like 3 a.m. when they have to ask everyone. They open the seating so you can run down to the court side to make it look not empty. It's awesome, man. Like, it's totally it's loud. I think it's it's loud and party, but it's still somewhat respectful. Like it's not like disrespectful to the players or anything. The grounds are really fun. Everyone just seems to have a good time. Like it's also in New York City. You step out and you're just in the biggest city in the world, arguably the biggest city in the world. I would recommend it, man. Come to this Open. I'll be there. So I'll buy you a honey deuce.
Oh
It's
yeah,
one of those.
it's gonna be like $200 next year or something by the price increase.
Legitimately, it's gone up in price every single year. Like legitimately, it's crazy. I remember the good old days when you get a grounds pass to US Open for like $60. So now I think the cheapest grounds pass I could get was like $220. It's crazy.
For a day?
So for just a grounds pass to not have access to Ash.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, but it's fun. It is the US Open, right? And you're in New York, so there's a lot of things that are good there. Well, this was great, man. I really appreciate the conversation. Interested to hear about your new products. When we publish this, I guess the training kit is the most spotlighted one, but also fascinating to hear about your work with giving back to Tennis Cambodia, and other organizations. I think it's really really heartwarming to see that you give like 5% of your profits, and that's nice. I hope other brands can take some inspiration from that and also do that. And we try to help to build grassroots tennis and make tennis accessible in as many places as possible.
Yeah. No, man, I appreciate you having me on. This is great. I love talking about ADV, but I mean, I love talking about Tennis Cambodia and just the initiatives. I think I want to share that story more and more. So I think the more people hear it, the more people are interested in that type of world. So.
And I will link to the documentary in the show notes so people can check it out and learn more about Tennis Cambodia.
All right. Thanks, man. See ya.